Hello everybody. So for lab, I'm going to do a quick video on what to look for under a microscope so that you guys can identify the different blood cells that are on your lab list to be able to know, right? This kind of goes hands in hands with your hands-on blood typing lab as well. You may be shown pictures of that during your lab midterms to know what's clotting, what's not, and to be able to type blood cells. The purpose of this video is not to type the blood, although I will go over the basics of that. This video is so you can identify cells underneath a microscope. And with that, let's get to it. Right. So first, your basic blood cell types. You have three different types: erythrocytes, thrombocytes, and leukocytes. Erythrocyte, erythro is the combining form for the word red in Latin. Cyte is cell, so red cells. Your erythrocytes are your red blood cells. When we're looking at them under a microscope, they look kind of pinkish or reddish, like little donuts, depending on the dye that was used. They are going to be the most numerous blood cells on your slide or the blood smear that you're checking out. And to carry this over into lecture, their purpose and job is to carry oxygen to your cells in the body, and then the waste, which is carbon dioxide, back to your lungs so you can breathe it out. You will learn more about that process in lecture. Right? Thrombocytes are super small. They are the smallest things that are going to be on this video that we are looking at. Thrombo is your medical terminology combining form for talking about a blood clot or a thrombus. And cyte means cell, so these are clotting cells in your blood. They are very small, and I mean much, much, much smaller than your red blood cells by comparison. They look like small little dots. Sometimes you can see the jagged edges on them depending upon your blood slide or smear. And these little guys are the cells that are in your blood that are responsible for forming clots that will stop the blood flow or bleeding when you get a cut or a scrape, and that starts the healing process. When we do get a cut or scrape. You guys would know what a thrombus looks like, mostly from looking at scabs, because a scab is a dried blood clot on the outside of your skin, essentially. And then the last type of cells that we're going to look at, and we will spend most of this video looking at these, are your leukocytes. Leuko is your medical terminology Latin combining word that means white. Cyte is cell, so these are your white blood cells. You guys will have an entire unit about these in lecture because your white blood cells or leukocytes comprise your immune system. Like, this is what makes up your immune system. You have lots of different types of leukocytes because they all have different jobs and do different things. Once again, we'll hit that more later on in this video and talk about it way more in depth in lecture. But most of these leukocytes are larger than your red blood cells. So most leukocytes are going to be bigger than your erythrocytes. So for example, if we are looking at these lovely pictures of blood smears, right, can you spot your three types of blood cells? So in both of these pictures, we can see that the most numerous ones are these red dots here. Most of them look like a little donut. Right, because the middle part of red blood cells is much thinner than the outer rim. And you can see all of them in this blood smear as well. So all of these blood cells that my mouse is hovering over that look like little red donuts are your erythrocytes, right? And if we're looking for stuff that is smaller than a red blood cell, right? So if we're looking around and we're looking at everything these slides have in them, you can see this one tiny little dot that my pointer is pointing to right there. Or if you want the slightly more close-up image, and we come over here, you can see these other smaller little dots here. Right? These tiny itty-bitty little dots. Those little bitty dots are your thrombocytes, or otherwise known as blood platelets. So those are your platelet cells, or your thrombocytes. That's what's responsible for blood clots. And then if we look out and we're checking out all the other cells, in this one, you can see this one random bigger cell than the other red blood cells just floating around here. Over here, you can see two of them and see how it's bigger than your red blood cells combined. Like, by comparison, and you have two of them over here, and then you have this one other weirder looking one right there. Those are all of your leukocytes, or white blood cells. So just looking at this, you can tell your three basic types: your erythrocytes, thrombocytes, and leukocytes. Okay. So when we start talking about our leukocytes, there are two different branches or family groups of leukocytes that you should know. You have the granulocytes, site cell, granula because they look grainy or granular. Agranulocytes, site for cell, granulo because they look grainy or granular. A in front of a word means not or against, right? So atheist means someone who does not have a belief in God, which is theist, right? A theist is someone who believes in a God. An atheist does not believe in a God. So if a granulocyte looks like they have grains or is granular on it, an agranulocyte does not look grainy, right? This is the basic difference between the two groups. So granulocytes are cells that are going to look grainy under a microscope because of the way the dye interacts with the outer proteins on the cell. Because we use dyes in these smears and little slides so you can see things a little bit better. The way the dye interacts with those proteins on the outside of the cell makes it look kind of grainy, or like there's little granules on it. So they look grainy. Collectively, all of your granulocytes are going to end with the word "phil." So your three main examples of granulocytes that you should know are neutrophils, basophils, and eosinophils. Your phils here are granulocytes. Your agranulocytes do not look gritty. They don't look like they have little granules on them. They look smoother, right? All of your agranulocytes are going to end with the term "cyte." So lymphocyte, monocyte, megakaryocytes, these are your cytes, and they are all agranulocytes, or agranular. I'm going to apologize if you can hear my cat pitching a hissy fit in the background and meowing right now. I apologize for that. Alrighty, and with that, let's get into what these individual types of white blood cells look like. The first ones we're going to talk about are your neutrophils. Neutrophils are the most common type of white blood cell, so you're going to see them on a lot of different blood smears. There's a good chance that you will see at least one on most slides, simply because they are so very common, right? Your neutrophils have the job of basically indiscriminately eating any bodily invaders, so any bacteria or anything like that that gets into your bloodstream, the neutrophils try to eat first, much like Pac-Man does with the little dots as Pac-Man runs around the video game screen. It's what neutrophils do, so that's why they are so numerous. They have multiple nuclei inside them, so they are multinoculated, and they look like they have multiple nucleus. If we're talking about looking under cells, we can see this whole thing right here is one cell, and the darker parts in the middle here are the nuclei. So this is, again, one cell here and multiple nuclei. And so your neutrophils are going to look like they have multiple nuclei in them. And their nuclei are usually strung together, sort of like a sausage link. So if you're looking for cells, you can see all of these different nuclei that are strung together like little blobs, like stuck together. This is a neutrophil, and this one's a neutrophil, because you can once again see multiple nuclei that are strung together like little sausage links. Neutrophil here, neutrophil with multiple blobs. There you go. All of those are neutrophils, and that's how you identify them under a microscope. They're going to be bigger than your red blood cells and look like they have multiple nuclei that are like sausage links inside them. Right? Your basophils are the next ones we're going to be talking about. So basophils inside your body are responsible for releasing histamine as a response to things. So that can be a good thing, For example, you need a little bit of histamine to make an area around a paper cut swell up to help start the healing process and make sure pathogens don't get in through the open paper cut, but at the same time you don't lose too much blood going out of it. So histamine can be good. If you have allergies, these guys are a little bit too active and you curse them every single spring, whether you know you're cursing them or not. Because histamine will also make you have the runny nose, the swollen, itchy eyes, all those kind of allergy responses that we know, right? So basophils look like they are spotted. See how it looks like it has polka dots on them? And this one is very polka dotty. This one is very spotted, right? So your basophils are spotted like a Dalmatian. These guys are your least common white blood cell, thankfully for those with allergies, right? So these are typically your least common white blood cell. The easiest way to remember what these guys look like and what they do for lecture is if you are allergic to dogs, blame your spotted basophils. If you are allergic to that Dalmatian, blame your basophil because it's what's giving you that allergy. Right? So these guys are spotted like a Dalmatian. There you go. Your eosinophils are also one of the easier ones to pick out, and I actually really like these guys. I know the word eosinophil is sort of it's weird, it's off the wall. These guys are your second least common white blood cell type. You don't have very many of them in your body. Eosinophils are responsible for protecting you against parasites, so they really only spike if you have a parasitic infection like a tapeworm or something like that. Typically, your eosinophils are going to be a little bit bigger or larger than your neutrophils. But how you can always tell what an eosinophil looks like, the dye that is used in all of these smears or like little plates of slides reacts differently with eosinophils than it does in any other than it does for any other white blood cells. And the dye always makes your eosinophils look hot pink. Like, look at this gorgeous guy. Like, your neutrophils were boring, right? So if we're looking back at neutrophils, they were kind of boring. You could see the nucleus pretty well, right? But if we switch back to our eosinophils, look at that! He is bright pink with a purple nucleus. All of your eosinophils are going to end up looking bright pink or hot pink, and their nucleus always looks like a pair of Beats headphones. So your slightly larger white blood cells that look hot pink that have a pair of Beats headphones on in the middle, that would be your eosinophil. Right, so look for something hot pink with Beats headphones, and you are good to go for your eosinophils. That's what you need to label. Now if we go to your other branch, the agranulocytes of your white blood cells, the first one are your lymphocytes, right? Lymphocytes can vary in size. They range in size from the size of about a red blood cell to slightly bigger than them. So this one is bigger than its red blood cell companion. This one is about the same size, right? But your lymphocytes have one singular super-de-duper large nucleus in it, right? So here's a good example. You can see the darker purple right there, large nucleus in the middle of that cell with only a little bit of outline of the rest of the cell that's kind of a bluish tint. That is all one cell, but the purple part is the super big nucleus, right? So your lymphocytes are going to have a single large nucleus, and frankly, that really big nucleus makes it look like a really big eyeball, right? So it looks like a large eyeball. The job of these cells within your white blood cells and your immune system is these guys are your T cells. They seek and destroy specific infections. A branch of them are called natural killer cells. Think of them as though they are assassins and they are always watching, right? They are always watching for the evildoers that would attack your body. They look like a large eyeball. They are the secret assassins that watch everything, right? So your lymphocytes look like large eyeballs, right? And they're always going to look really dark compared to the red blood cells. So we've seen some lymphocytes in previous ones. Like on this eosinophil slide, you see 3 eosinophils here, and then 1 lone lymphocyte in the corner. I encourage you guys to go back through and look, like, just Google pictures of blood slides and see what you guys can pick up and label. And once again, eosinophil, your erythrocytes are your red blood cells, and then you have some platelets here. Right? Just look through Google and Bing images and see what you guys can find and label. Because you guys can do it. Just compare things, right? Monocytes, mono means one or alone. Cyte is cell. Your monocytes are going to look way more blobby than the rest of them. All of the other blood cells we've talked about were pretty decently circular, if that makes sense. Your monocytes are going to kind of look more like amoebas, right? They're going to kind of look more like a splat, and they are larger than the others. So you have a monocyte here, and a monocyte here. See how much bigger it is compared to your erythrocytes? And they kind of do just look like amoeba blobs. Out of these 5 major types of white blood cells that we've just covered, neutrophils, basophils, eosinophils, lymphocytes, and monocytes. Monocytes are the biggest of those 5, right? And they are also the 3rd most prevalent around your body. They do a similar job to your neutrophils, except your neutrophils tend to hang out system-wide, around your skin, that kind of good stuff. Your neutrophils are on call for the Pac-Man job, wherever you may get a cut or a scrape. Your monocytes tend to hang out in specific organs, like your liver or your spleen and that kind of thing. And they hang out in your lymph nodes, so when the infection actually gets into your systems, the organ-specific monocytes are like, yeah, that's not supposed to be there, and then they go Pac-Man on the infection. Right? So monocytes pretty much do a similar job to neutrophils, but they tend to be organ-specific and home bodies. They stick around their home base. So you're more likely to see monocytes on cellular close-ups of other organs as opposed to just blood smears. But here you have a few monocytes just floating around. Right? Now, if we're going to talk about the biggest leukocyte that you guys need to know, that would be a megakaryocyte. Mega means massive or big. Cyte is cell. Karyo means nucleus, or refers to the nucleus. So a megakaryocyte is a gigantic, large white blood cell, and it's huge and has multiple nuclei. Did I mention it was massive in size? Look at this. Compare these lymphocytes around here to this one massive, big megakaryocyte. Do you see the size difference in a red blood cell, a lymphocyte, and this massive megakaryocyte? Do y'all see that difference? I hope you see that difference. Most of your megakaryocytes, they live in your bone marrow, and they end up being the parent cells to platelets. So they end up producing the thrombocytes or platelets that are in you. So you're going to see these on close-up images of bone matter or bone marrow and that kind of thing. Right? And did I mention that they're big? Once again, look at this big megakaryocyte and compare it to your neutrophil, right there. A lymphocyte right there. Look at how big that is. That is massive compared to the others. Same thing here. So you have a few megakaryocytes right here on this zoomed out image. And lymphocyte right there. Red blood cells right there. And that is a megakaryocyte. It's huge. Look at these huge guys. So if you see a white blood cell that is massive in comparison to other things, that's what this is. And now we're going to talk about your blood typing. Some of you may remember this from a basic biology class. Others, this may be new information, right? So let's get going. So with blood types, we all know that we are a letter and then positive or negative after it. I'm going to talk about the letters first. So when they started discovering different blood types, some people discovered that, hey, some red blood cells have a little protein on the outside of it called an antigen. And this is the first shape of an antigen we've seen. So we're going to name this A. If I backtrack a little bit, right, and if we remember from either cell biology or basic biology, maybe A and P1 if you have to remember from there, our individual cells have proteins on the cell membranes that encase our cells. Some of those proteins work towards communicating with other cells within our system. And one of those types of proteins that we have is called an antigen. Antigens are self-identifying proteins. So you can think of an antigen like a name tag. And for those of you that have not had chemistry, to interact with each other, proteins tend to interact amongst one another with things they can fit onto, like a puzzle piece. So proteins have to fit together in order to interact. So when scientists started discovering that our individual cells had these different proteins on them that acted like name tags, they started naming them. The first shape of a protein they discovered, they just called the A protein. It's A, right? So it's A. So A blood type people have an A antigen or an A-shaped name tag on the outside of their red blood cells. Some people, right, had a different shaped protein on the outside of their red blood cells. So it was the second shape they found. It was the second type of antigen the scientists discovered. So they called it the B protein or the B antigen. So now we have some red blood cells here that are B name tagged, and they have B antigens. It's what gives that blood type its name. So people with an A blood type have A antigens on them. People with B blood type have B antigens on them. Right? But all of these are linked to genetics. Right? These traits are codominant with one another, so A and B proteins could either interact and combine when we're talking in terms of genetics, or maybe you don't have any proteins. So A and B end up being co-dominant with each other, and if we have an A mom and a B dad have a child, there is a possibility that the kid will inherit both name tags and end up with what is called an AB blood type. And AB blood type means that all of the red blood cells on an AB individual have both the A and the B antigens on them. So an AB blood type carries around the name tags for both A and B. Right? And then some people's bodies are just a little bit lazy. This includes mine, right? Genetically speaking, we didn't get the blueprints for making any of these name tags, so our bodies just don't care, and we don't make them. So I am also an O individual. My body is lazy and I don't have the blueprints for this. Our blood type is O, and that means we don't have any antigens on the outside of our red blood cells. Originally, when the scientists were naming these blood types, they called them A for the first one, B for the second one. The combo of the two was AB. And then they just labeled the people that didn't have any of these antigens as 0, right? 0, you don't have any, it's none. But because the other three names were all letters, people kind of misread the 0 on the page as an O, which is why we have A, B, AB, and O blood types, because they didn't think to name it 0. So we have O blood types, and that's why we have O blood types. This starts to get complicated, right? When we discover that our immune systems attack things that are foreign to it, right? Our immune systems don't like things that don't belong on our insides. So if you are given the wrong blood type, your body will begin to attack it. Things that begin to attack foreign outsiders, or the proteins that our bodies design to flag outside invaders so they are easily identifiable and can be attacked by the immune system, are called antibodies. I'm sure you have heard that phrase a great deal recently, especially in the news. Your body produces antibodies against anything that can give you an infection, for the most part. So that means if you have A blood type, but you are exposed to a person with B blood, the A person's body will produce B antibodies. Right? The same is true in reverse. If you are an individual with a B blood type, and you are given A blood, the B person's body will begin to make A antibodies or anti-A antibodies so that the B person's body can fight against the A person. Right? In this way, if we're thinking about this in terms of sports, A people are all UGA fans. They love that dog. They love UGA. So they want to associate with other UGA fans. Right? Our B people are Rambling Wrecks from Georgia Tech. They don't want to associate with the dogs. They're going to stick together as Georgia Tech fans. Right? So B produces anti-A immune responses. A produces anti-B immune responses. And then you have the AB people. The AB people naturally already had both name tags or both antigens on the cells. So that means AB people, their immune system doesn't care. They already know these antigens in the name tags, so they're not going to have an immune response to A or B antigens because they already have A and B antigens, and their immune system is not going to attack themselves. So AB blood type people, they don't make any antibodies against these different blood types. They don't make any. So in our sports terms again, while you have your A people being grumbly over here for UGA, and your B people saying, forget them, we root Georgia Tech, all of your AB people are sitting here saying, hey guys, I'm hosting the Super Bowl party, I want this Friday night football thing, let's do this. So the AB people, they're just accepting of everyone and want the good football play. They're there for the sport, they don't care about a team. Right? And then you have your O people. Because O people did not have any of those antigens, they don't have any of the name tags. If you expose an O person's body to any of these other two blood types, or three blood types really, the O person's body will produce antibodies against both of them, because the O body doesn't have access to the name tags initially. So your O person is going to try and protect itself from both A antigens and B antigens. So O blood type makes anti-A antibodies and anti-B antibodies. If we go back to our sports terminologies, that means that your O individual is the person that is happily sitting in their apartment reading a book, rolling their eyes, wondering when their AB neighbor is finally going to turn down the television and the music and when the party will stop, because they just want to get back to their book and be left alone. Right? So that's sort of how donating blood and receiving blood transfusions works. Right? A people can give to A people, or in an emergency, an A person is going to be able to get blood from an A individual. Right? If an O person wants to be social and they want to give blood, they can give blood to an A person. So A blood types can receive blood from A and O. Right? Flip that around and the same is true for your B blood types. Once again, if an O person does want to put down their book and socialize, an O person can give blood to your B individual if they want to. Right? And B people can give blood to other B people. Because why wouldn't Georgia Tech fans want to help other Georgia Tech fans? The same as how with A blood type, UGA fans will want to help other UGA fans. Right? AB people, because they're the ones that host the parties, if anybody wants to, everybody can choose to give to AB. So when O feels like being social and they're invited to the party, O people can donate blood to an AB person. Like the UGA fans and the Georgia Tech fans were all invited to the party, so both of them can donate to AB, and then AB can also give to other AB individuals. Right? However, O, because of the way these antibodies work and how they try to protect you, O blood type can only get blood from other O people. Because if any blood has any of these antigens on it, their body will attack, right? So O blood type can give its time and its love and effort to anybody, but O can only receive its gift from other O people. So O blood type can only get blood from other O people. Right? If we're talking about who can give to other individuals, because we just talked about receiving, A blood type can give their blood to A people and AB people, because AB already have access to A blood type. B blood type can give their B blood to either other B people or other AB people, because AB already has both of these antigens. Their immune system isn't going to fight it. Right? And O blood type can give to everybody, because everybody already has the antigens and are going to ignore the little blood cells that don't have name tags. So O can give to everybody. Right? O can give to everybody, but can only get blood from other O people. On the flip side of that, you have AB. AB blood can only give blood to other AB people because they have access to both of these antigens. And that means anybody without one of them is going to attack them. So AB people can only give blood to other AB people, but because AB hosts all the parties and don't have an immune response, everybody can give blood to AB people. Okay. To make this slightly more complicated than it already is, they've discovered a secondary protein called the rhesus protein. Some people have the Rh factor, or the rhesus protein, and other people do not. If you have the rhesus protein, or the Rh factor, congratulations, you are a positive blood type. If you do not have the Rh factor, you are a negative blood type. It's a do you have this checkbox, yes or no kind of deal. Your body will respond to that Rh factor if it has never seen it before, and if it's not a part of you already, you'll have an immune response to it if you're given it. If you do already have the Rh factor, your body doesn't care because you already have it. That means that if you are a positive blood type, you can only donate blood or give blood to other positive people, but anybody can give blood to you. Right? Everybody can give blood to you because you can receive blood from positive or negative people if you're a positive blood type, but you can only give blood to other positive people. On the flip side of things, right, if you are a negative blood type, you can give blood to anybody because that just means you're lacking this protein. There's nothing for the immune system to attack, so you can give blood to anybody if you are a negative blood type. But you can only receive blood from other negative people. Because if somebody gives you positive blood type, your body will attack the blood. So negative blood types can give to everybody, but only get from other negative people. Positive blood types can only give to other positive people, but they can get blood from anyone. So I will round this out with my blood type. I am O positive. That means because I am O positive, I can give to all the other positive people out there. So when I donate blood, please bear in mind there are blood drives that go around Chattahoochee Tech every few months. Please do donate blood if you have the time and the spare blood to spare. It will help somebody in the hospital when somebody's in great need, and your body just makes more blood, so please donate. But I am O positive. When I donate my blood, that means an A positive person, a B positive person, AB positive, or another O positive person can be given my blood and saved. And O positive blood, I'm lucky in this, O positive is the most common blood type. However, because I am O and I can only get from other O people, I have to be given O positive or O negative blood if I ever get into an accident and need a transfusion. I can't accept a donation from any of these guys, but another O person, be them positive or negative, I can take from. Your universal donor, the one blood type that can give to anybody, positive or negative and anything else, is O negative blood type. Because O negative can give to AB, A and B, and because they're negative, they can give to positive or negatives. So O negative is your universal donor, the one blood type that can be given any blood type, right? So the one blood type that can be given any single blood type is AB positive. So AB positive blood type is the universal recipient. Everybody, positive or negative, A blood type, O blood type, B blood type, or AB, can give to a B positive person. Everybody else, you have to take into account these rules. So if you have an A positive person, they can be given blood from either an A positive or an O positive person, or A or O negative. If you have an A negative person, then it has to be A negative or O negative blood giving them blood. They can't accept anything from AB or A people. That's a no-no. But you have to mix and match with these various rules, right? I hope I've made that a little bit clearer to you all. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. And I will see you guys later.